I am so tired. So anybody who knows me knows that I'm not a rage baiter. And as a content creator, I work very hard to share content that I actually believe benefits your life or potentially improves it, or at least opens your mind in a way that you can explore what benefits or improves your quality of life. That is my goal as a creator, because as a Black girl with a big brain, I feel a responsibility to do so. But I gotta be honest with y'all, I'm pissed off just a little bit. I'm human, right? And I'm angry, not at you, but for you, because we have not realized how social media, this very platform, any platform that you're seeing this video on, has literally taken the powers that be and exist on it to warp minds and condition them. And our government realizes, which is why they're acquiring platforms. You guys think it's just TikTok, but pay attention to who Meta just made the president of the whole situation here. Everybody focused on Mark, but he ain't the one that's there running the day-to-day. He's too rich for that. Now, let's come back. They're making us a microwave society. Right? We all know that putting something in the microwave to heat it up can be convenient, but it ain't nothing like when you put that baby in that conventional oven and you get that real bake, you get that real roast. But what does that require? Time. What does that require? Patience. Something that they do not want us to have, because the more of us that are impatient, the more of us that who ain't got time for this, who ain't got time for that, the easier it is to upset us. And then what happens? We get to see flooded timelines of content that literally breaks your heart. You get to watch little children get tear gassed by ice. You get to see all these types of things. So now we take your impatient impulsivity and we feed it, and then we're surprised when people start to do things out of anger or have breakdowns or mental this and all of that. Mental health is insane right now. But I'm saying this right now because not only have I proven this once, I'm about to prove it again. As a content creator who is also a podcaster, right? I feel as a podcaster, I have a responsibility to say this shit. We make clips. The clips are designed to bait you in to the full-length episodes. And you know what? In the beginning, that used to actually be the way that you did it. It worked. People would see a piece of a conversation and they'd be like, oh, this is interesting. I want to hear more. But now it's changing, and I'm watching it and I'm seeing it and constantly seeing it, because not only will they take that 60-second content that they know was clipped. First of all, you know it's not the full length of the conversation. A lot of times pieces of the conversation are cut out in order to make the clip of a certain time, because they are literally on this platform telling you not to post videos longer than 3 minutes because we will not promote it. We will not elevate it if it's over this timeline, which means make it shorter. Make it shorter. Make it shorter. Why? Why? Because if you got the full depth, it might actually shift your behavior in a positive way, as opposed to getting these clip pieces that will do a whole lot in the comments, that'll do a whole lot in the shares, but people will miss the bigger points being made. People will miss that. Now, I'm not saying that every podcaster and every content creator is out here doing the good work, because they're not. There's a lot of them who see that this is the way things are working, and they're just trying to figure out how they can get their check, how they can leave here with something while the time is hot, because we know that when it comes to media, when it comes to all kinds of cultures, pop culture, all these types of things, that they always shift. It's not going to be the same over time. So people want to get what they can out of this moment. That being said, do know that I'm not speaking about them. I'm speaking about those of us who genuinely want to take our lived experiences and our professional careers to take the information that has been bestowed upon us, either by way of research, study, of different studies and facts, or by observation in our experience in doing these works, as well as sharing our life experiences, because we realize that our testimony is not just for us. We realize that our testimony could save someone else's life. I realize that if I talk about a dark time that I've been through and how I got through it, it might let somebody who watch it feel like I can get through it. And those of us who are out here on these platforms coming from that space, and I'm sorry, because this is literally breaking my heart. Those of us who are coming from that space, we have to work really, really hard to get you to care about more than 60 seconds. Why is this hurting me today? I'll tell you. I had a conversation on a podcast with a good friend, and my man, my love, my heart, my world sat beside me in that conversation as we discussed many things. And at the beginning of the conversation came in and said about a pleasure gap that exists also for men. They talk about the female pleasure gap. They speak up. He wanted to talk about the male pleasure gap. And I began to go on and say, like, this is such a good conversation, because we think that men are where pleasure is focused around, because so much of what media has presented to us has been shaped in you guys, you know, getting a girl, getting that ass, whatever the case is, and getting off, getting a nut. Did she top me off? Yo, she made me bust, whatever. But what I've learned in my lived experience, 14 years, by the way, in doing this work as a clinical sexologist, is that what men have defined or shaped their pleasure understanding under, for the most part, and I'm not speaking for all, but I'm speaking for the most part of what I've seen, has been based around those factors. So most of those men have never experienced pleasure beyond something that licks their neck, their nipples, and their manhood. That's it. Meanwhile, women who, as we were rebelling and things like that in these movements, have begun to uplift and tell themselves, F you, I'm getting my pleasure, whether I have to give it to myself or whether I'm no longer dealing with X, Y, and Z because I'm not getting it. Women have been advocating for these types of equalities in many realms and areas. Some of y'all too much, because listen, I'm gonna be very clear. I'm not a pick me or what they call it, or a panderer or all that other kind of bullshit. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. But I will say that some of these women's movements have also went too far, because it's made you too hard. And it's not something, we look at softness and femininity as weakness instead of realizing that it is our strongest skill as women. That being told, I'm going to dial my energy down, and I'm going to show you just how that works. Because after you've heard me rage and heard me yell, I need you to hear my heart. Men, in this video, as I spoke about, because that is how we've shaped pleasure around it, especially for African American men, men of color, period, and especially with cultural and religious factors even put into the mix, have not, in a lot of ways, experienced the types of pleasure that they could, that elates them. Right? I know that because every time y'all see my black man smile, y'all say something about it. Y'all say, have y'all ever noticed he's always smiling? Why the hell do you think that is? Because he has a woman who cares about his pleasure and not just in bed. But I sat on the podcast and I said, this is what I noticed. I noticed a woman will reach out. She'll want to learn about her body. She want to get this lesson on this. She might even want to learn how to please a man. I want to learn how to slob a knob. I want to learn how to do all these things. But it's much harder to get men to sign up for the same class, right? And a lot of times it's conditioned thinking, right? Or a belief that they have nothing else to learn in that realm or area. I already know what I'm doing. I know how to do this. I've been doing this. I've been doing X, Y, and Z. So they don't feel a need to seek further information or education. But bottom line, what I was speaking about in this particular discussion really was, and what I've observed and how I feel like it's negatively affected the relationship that men have had with pleasure. And I'm actually advocating for men. I'm actually trying to say, I hate the fact that you can't talk to your boy when you might think you have erectile dysfunction, because you might get clowned for it, because the last time you went to him in a vulnerable moment when that girl broke your heart, he made jokes about it. And it breaks my heart that that's your reality. Not saying all men again, but many. And that's why y'all so damn angry sometimes. I don't want this for us. But as this clip went up, 60 seconds, now don't get me wrong, I'm not coming at my people's, the podcast or anything like that, because I understand that they have a job to do. But the conversation was clipped together, pieces of it. And it changed the message. And as a result, people were willing to pass all of these statements about me for 60 seconds of content without hearing the full discussion. And what was worse, it was men. Men who I was actually advocating for. Not only did y'all come to the comments to think that, oh, maybe she just hasn't had a man who treat her a certain way. And it's like, my man is sitting right beside me. He treats me excellently because I'm also always smiling. Okay? But it was also their desire to not even respond to the clip and instead try to insult me for my size, which was interesting to me. The jokes were like a far reach, like 600-pound life. I'm sorry, baby. Like I said, I don't qualify in the 200s range, but it was the fact that this was how they responded, but mostly because they were willing to consume this 60 seconds of clipped together, edited content that did not reflect the full conversation and the full depth of what I was actually saying. And so it allowed them to form an opinion based off of that. And I almost feel like I can say with certainty that if you watched the full 6 minutes of this particular part of the discussion, you would feel differently. You wouldn't have said the things that you said. You maybe didn't agree with everything I said, but you probably would not have felt inclined to insult me. You probably would not have felt inclined to assume, based on this conversation, that I don't have or haven't had a man who prioritizes my pleasure, or that men don't feel safe. That actually was the funniest part. The men don't feel, they don't talk about it with me. Actually, honey, my feelings are existing because of how much they talk to me. Quite the opposite. Y'all in my DMs. And y'all might think it's all because I got a fat ass or some titties. And I can talk a good one about how I grab my man and take him into my mouth and make him feel like the king that he is. But most of them end up in my inbox talking about their pain, being vulnerable to me. And many of them have said to me that they do not feel like they can discuss this with their own friends. So I'm not speaking based off of some assumption. I'm speaking based off of what my lived professional experience has literally shown me across the last decade and a half. So I'll leave you with this, because many people won't even get this far into the video because it ain't 60 seconds. But there's a reason why I make my content long form. There's a reason why my clips are 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes 12 minutes, sometimes 7 minutes, sometimes whatever, because I make longer form content because I'm trying to recondition you to be the kind of person who does due diligence, to seek more than the surface, who wants to know more than just what's being presented in front of them, who wants to hear logical perspectives, but also even when someone is sharing an emotional experience, they want to be able to take into account other people's experiences. That's what helps us grow our awareness of each other and what we are going through. Even if you ain't been through it, you maybe can't relate, but at least you can understand. Because until we can do this, your relationships are constantly going to fail. A lot of times people don't break up because they can't get along. They break up because they can't understand how one person's lived experience has shaped them versus how their lived experience has shaped them. And now they're trying to come together without taking time to understand what those lived experiences have done to each other. But if I'm being really honest with you guys, my heart breaks regularly for men, Black men. My heart breaks regularly for Black women. I am so tired of what I've watched us literally become. And I know that this is what literally creates children who are 9 and 10 years old trying to go and harm and drag a little girl through weeds and rape and sexually assault her. Why do we think these kids are doing these kinds of things? It's because what has been done to us and what we are conditioned to. How are we? It's really hard for me to get out there with a picket sign. I'll get out there with a picket sign for y'all. And it'll be the people that I'm standing there holding up the sign for that will be the literal people who have found some way to attack me. And it hurts. But as a woman who is sensitive, I've learned to protect my sensitivity because it is sacred and it is what keeps me in tune and adapt and able to connect with the people that I have reached. So I want you guys to watch the clip. Then I want you to watch the longer part of that discussion and tell me, do you come out with the same belief? Do you come out feeling the same way you did after watching the first part as you did after watching the second part? And after you've done that, please comment below.
The conversation around sex is happening more for women than men because one, y'all can't have conversations amongst each other sometimes without it being, pauses every 3 seconds. But I also feel like it's not women who made just you getting a nut the goal. I feel like men created that, right? And now we're in a different stage or a different age, or you reach a certain point in your life where you're like, I want more. So I also feel like there's a lack of responsibility by men to learn yourself, right? Whereas women, even if she hasn't had that orgasm, I can tell you, I'm more prone to see a woman reach out to me and say, I haven't had that orgasm and I'm trying to learn how, than a guy to come to me and say, well, outside of coming, I've never really felt nothing else.
There's a lot of things that happen behind closed doors that men flat out do not talk about in men's circles. We don't have the discussion. A lot of times, like, it's not in detail.
I share with thousands of people every day on the podcast.
Yeah, and I feel like if you in this setting, you probably talk about these things more. Even Tahoe, right?
Yeah.
He probably talks about them more because the conversation topics come up. But outside of this,
you'll be surprised how many straight men, they'll talk to me about it before they talk to another straight man about it. I think it's dope, but I feel like I want you to explore your sexuality and have those conversations.
Yeah. Because
we can learn from each other. Because if you think you're having good sex, ask yourself, am I honestly having good sex? And you're probably not. Survey says you're not. But the next one is, who's better at talking about sex, men or women? Who do y'all think is better at talking about sex, men or women?
First, baby.
I think women. Everything, for what I'm seeing, for a person that cares, for a man that cares, is usually about the woman. So a lot of times women know what they like. The women out here that never come. Us men is just geared towards us coming, jokes about everything. So women know what they like. A lot of times they can't get what they like. They have to have toys to bring them to a place that some men can't. So they can tell you what they like, exactly what they like. A lot of men are simple as hell. We don't have that much spots. You know what I'm saying? Women, it's somebody's neck, it's somebody's side, it's somebody's thigh, behind the knees. You know what I'm saying? Us men, a lot of times we don't get touched like that or explored like that. So we don't even know about that. But women know about that. I be asking women all the time, when was the last time you massaged a man? And a lot of times they can't tell you. But if you ask a man, when's the last time you massaged a woman? And they were like, 3 days ago, bro. Like, exactly. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it's tailored towards the woman. You have some selfish guys that try to take the power back and then bust a nut 2 minutes, that's it, forget it. But then a lot of times the woman will tell you, and she has like different viewpoints, and she can talk about sex, and she knows what she's talking about because she knows what she feels, or she has way more nerve receptors than we do. Mm-hmm. So, and their pleasure, a lot of times everything is geared towards their pleasure. Men, a lot of times, would be so, we're going to bust a nut, that's it, you know what I'm saying? And then you start going into different communities, and it becomes a thing. The doms have like a whole tool set geared towards a woman's pleasure. Mm-hmm. You don't really have a tool set towards a man's pleasure. You know what I'm saying?
When's the last time you spoke to her and told her what you needed sexually?
I think a while back, I was like, honey, you haven't really been sitting on my face. And I feel like it's false advertising that you come out the shower smelling like 3 different things and you just do not sit on my face. I got in this relationship to get my face sat on, you know, and I haven't been getting it. So it's like, can we work on that? She's like, yeah, we're going to do it. Yeah.
Why is that my voice?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, why does she sound like a Sesame Street character?
First
all
of
right, but set the
wait,
scene
can I say one thing though?
What's up, babe?
You don't think though, babe, that because I listened to what you said, and I think you have a lot of good points. But there's one problem I have.
Talk to me.
Right? And it's that I feel like the conversation around sex is happening more for women than men because one, y'all can't have conversations amongst each other sometimes without it being, you know, pauses every 3 seconds, right? That's one end of it. But I also feel like it's not women who made just you getting a nut the goal. I feel like men created that, right? And now we're in a different stage or a different age, or you reach a certain point in your life where you're like, I want more. But I remember being a young girl, right? And dating, always dated a little bit older than me, not always a bunch, but my earliest boyfriend was like 2 years older than me.
Okay.
Bottom line is, it was always about being good at making him come. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the conditioning very early was around getting him off, and we didn't get you off unless we saw a physical release. I don't recall a point in time in which I've ever had a guy actually be the one to want more. It was my own curiosity that made me look for more on a guy. And then obviously, you know, going into the field and profession, that's another side of it. So when I approach it with a curious mind. I'm not waiting for you to tell me. I'm looking for what you don't know on your body. And in my experience, I'm always having to educate a guy about his own body.
Absolutely.
So I also feel like there's a lack of responsibility by men to learn yourself, right? Whereas women, even if she hasn't had that orgasm, I can tell you, I'm more prone to see a woman reach out to me and say, I haven't had that orgasm and I'm trying to learn how, than a guy to come to me and say, well, outside of coming, I've never really felt nothing else. I want to find more ways to explore my pleasure. Said what, when, when? Like they in my inbox, but it's always them coming to me phrasing a question, like, how do you want to do something for a woman? But then when I talk to them and I get to the bottom of it and I ask certain questions and I pull out what it really is, you just too egotistical and prideful to say, I don't know the things that make me have pleasure outside of A, B, and C.
Because there's a lot of pressure as a heterosexual male. There's a lot of minefields men walk through. I always, talk shit and be like, yo, I'm a man, law-abiding citizen. You know what I'm saying? I ain't say pause yet in this podcast, but, there's a few times by law I would have said it. But regardless, so when it comes to these situations, you can't really speak about your pleasure. There's a lot of things that happen behind closed doors that men flat out do not talk about in men's circles. So like black men.
Like what? I'm curious about that.
Like if you're a man that all right, let's say this is a sensitive spot. This here by your elbow.
On the crevice. Okay.
Right. What's it called?
The crevice of your arm.
Yeah, crevice. I thought it was a special term and shit. So anyway, the crevices?
We're still learning.
What's that?
We're still learning.
You know what I'm saying? So let's say it's something special over here. You in your circle of friends, you talking about LeBron and Luka and all this other stuff. Nobody's gonna talk about, yo, bro, she touched the friggin' under my elbow, bro. This crevice over here. Men ain't talking about that. Meanwhile, Kasha talked with her best friends. Like, yo, Chris elbow dropped it. And I was like, yo, did he really jump off the dresser? Oh, my God. They have these kind of conversations. They talk about, yo, he tickled me and did this at the same time. Man, we don't have the discussion. You'd be like, yo, this bitch didn't ride. She's trash. On to the next one. We don't have.
So y'all don't share the good times?
Hell no. We don't really talk about that. A lot of times, like, it's not in detail.
I share with thousands of people every day on the podcast.
Yeah, and I feel like if you in this setting, you probably talk about these things more. Even Tahoe, right?
Yeah.
He probably talks about them more because the conversation topics come up. But outside of this, if you think about it, like with, especially like you said, straight men, because it is another thing. But how often are you sitting around giving the full recap? Like dudes don't do that. Yeah. We're women, we will.
And if you are someone who seeks depth, I challenge you, watch both parts of the episode. It might bring you a greater love in this life. I don't use my time or my energy to do these things because I just want to, level up and cash a check. It's nice to grow, but I really care. That's the weight that I carry. I carry the weight of caring, of giving a damn. I'm not saying you have to do it all at once. Take your time. There's no rush. You deserve to feed your mind. You deserve to access more than 11% of it that the average person does. You deserve to at least try to. Just try to. That's why I started my new podcast with my co-host Tahoe. That's what Unconsciously Competent is about. It's about growing together. It's about ignorance meeting its match, because there are still things that as smart as I am, I'm ignorant about, and I want to be less ignorant. Because that's the only way we truly beat them. They used to say, you want to keep something from us, hide it in a book. And they realized that there's a better way, and they're using these platforms to do it. So choose to stay ignorant or choose to seek depth. But around here, I'm not making shit shorter. I'm giving it all the time it deserves. Because I feel like if you're going to support me, you deserve that. Whether you value it, that's on you. If it gets 20 likes, I don't give a shit. The 20 people who liked it, I'm happy you got it. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back and I'm going to go hug my kid and go kiss my man, bring my spirits back up.